Imagine a moment when every human decision has already failed. Cities are gone. Communication is silent. Leadership has vanished. There is no one left to give orders, no one left to stop what comes next. And yet, something is still listening. Somewhere, hidden deep within a system designed during the most dangerous years of the Cold War, a process begins to unfold. Not guided by emotion, not influenced by doubt, but driven only by signals, thresholds, and predefined logic. At that moment, the fate of millions is no longer in human hands. It belongs to a system built for a single purpose: to ensure that even in total destruction, retaliation would still come. This was not a theory. This was not science fiction. This was a real concept developed by the Soviet Union, known as Dead Hand. The Cold War created a world where fear was constant and invisible. It was not always seen in explosions or battles, but in the decisions made behind closed doors, in the calculations that determined how quickly a nation could respond to a threat, and in the knowledge that a mistake, a misunderstanding, or a false signal could lead to irreversible consequences. Both the United States and the Soviet Union lived under the shadow of nuclear weapons, knowing that any large-scale conflict would not be limited, controlled, or contained. It would be total. At the center of this tension was the concept of deterrence, often described as mutually assured destruction. The logic was simple. If one side launched a nuclear attack, the other would respond with equal or greater force, ensuring that both would be destroyed. This balance created a fragile stability, but it depended entirely on one critical assumption: that both sides would always be able to respond. And it was this assumption that deeply worried Soviet planners. The fear was specific, and it was grounded in real strategic developments. What if a surprise nuclear strike could eliminate the Soviet leadership in minutes? What if command centers were destroyed before orders could be given? What if communication networks were disrupted so completely that no response could be coordinated? In such a scenario, the Soviet Union would be left unable to retaliate, breaking the very foundation of deterrence and potentially inviting an attack. This concern became even more intense as technology advanced. Faster missiles, more accurate targeting, and increasingly sophisticated surveillance systems made the idea of a decapitation strike more plausible. The possibility that an entire chain of command could be neutralized in a single, overwhelming attack was no longer unthinkable. And in a system where response time could be measured in minutes, there was little margin for error. It was within this environment of pressure, fear, and urgency that the concept of an automated retaliation system began to take shape. Known in the West as Dead Hand and referred to within the Soviet Union as perimeter, this system was designed as a last resort. It would only activate under the most extreme circumstances, when all other systems had failed and when there was strong evidence that a nuclear attack had already taken place. The system was not constantly active in a fully autonomous state. According to available accounts, it required human activation during periods of heightened tension, after which it would begin monitoring conditions. This detail is critical because it shows that even within such a system, there was an attempt to retain some level of human control. But once activated, its role was clear: to observe, to verify, and, if necessary, to initiate our response. To do this, the system relied on multiple sources of data. It monitored seismic sensors capable of detecting the shock waves of nuclear detonations. It tracked radiation levels that could indicate the presence of nuclear explosions. It assessed communication channels, determining whether contact with leadership was still possible. None of these signals alone would trigger a response, but together they formed a pattern that the system was designed to interpret. And this is where the tension becomes deeply unsettling, because interpretation, even when based on data, is not infallible. During the Cold War, there were real incidents where early warning systems produced false alarms. In 1983, for example, a Soviet officer named Stanislav Petrov faced a situation where the system indicated that missiles had been launched. The data suggested an attack. The protocol suggested retaliation. But Petrov chose to wait, judging that the signal might be incorrect. And he was right. It was a false alarm. That moment illustrates a critical difference. A human could hesitate. A human could doubt. A human could question whether the data made sense. An automated system, however, would follow its programming. It would not feel uncertainty. It would not reconsider. It would act based on the inputs it received and the logic it was designed to execute. And in a scenario where multiple indicators aligned, even if incorrectly, the consequences could be irreversible. If the system determined that a nuclear attack had occurred and that the leadership was no longer able to respond, it would move to its final stage. Instead of launching missiles directly, it would deploy command rockets. These rockets would fly across Soviet territory, transmitting launch authorization signals to nuclear forces. In effect, they would replace the human chain of command, ensuring that the order to retaliate would still be delivered. This mechanism was designed to guarantee one outcome above all others: that any nuclear attack against the Soviet Union would result in a response, regardless of the circumstances. From a strategic perspective, this reinforced deterrence. It removed the possibility that an enemy could eliminate leadership and avoid retaliation. But at the same time, it introduced a new kind of risk, one rooted not in intention, but in interpretation. Much of what is known about this system comes from statements made after the Cold War, including by former Soviet officials who described its existence and purpose. While not every detail has been independently verified, the general concept is widely acknowledged in discussions of Cold War strategy. It stands as one of the most extreme examples of how far both sides were willing to go to maintain balance and prevent vulnerability. Even after the Cold War ended, questions about systems like this did not completely disappear. Some reports have suggested that elements of the system may have remained in place, adapted to new conditions, or maintained as a precaution. The lack of full transparency means that much remains uncertain, and that uncertainty itself contributes to the lasting impact of the story. In the end, Dead Hand represents more than a military system. It represents a moment in history where the fear of losing control led to the creation of something that could operate without it, a system designed to function when humans no longer could, a system built not just to respond to war, but to ensure that war would continue, even after everything else had ended. And that is where the true weight of this story lies. Because once a system like this exists, even as a concept, it changes how we understand power, control, and responsibility. It forces us to confront a question that goes beyond history and into something far more uncomfortable. If a machine can be trusted to decide when the world should end, what happens if it's wrong?